Okay, so if you are taking a class in Development Swift Explorations and you're getting stuck on this leap year assignment, it's page 15 of the Making Decisions, then I thought I would make a video today, not to give you the answer, but to just really get you close. Because I like to see where folks are at by this point in the class. So I don't want to give away the answer for this one because I'd like to see if you can figure it out yourself. But essentially, they've got a bunch of logic up here, and you follow the logic and write some code to determine if it's a leap year or not. One thing that you want to do when you start trying to execute this playground, I'm going to switch it back to manually run so that I can manually click on this, is that you want to comment out this one down here. So this is kind of like almost like an extra credit kind of part down here. So you don't have to get this second part right in my class anyways. And it doesn't actually give you extra credit points. It's just like for a challenge, try this out. And I'll show you how to do essentially how to accomplish this one also. But let's go over the basics up here. So what should happen essentially is you're going to write a bunch of code inside of here, some if-else statements. And if you get it right, then when you click play and execute it, it should say true, false over here. Right now it's saying true, 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 false. And to get that to happen, you've got to kind of write a bunch of if-else statements that are nested if-else statements. So if this is true, then check if this is true, then check if this is true. And I'll show you how to do that right about now. Okay, so I made a different function over here, and we're going to check to see if this string is Dave or David. And then we're going to spit out true or false. Right now the function's not taking any, or is taking in a string called name. Okay, and it's returning false. So if we were to call the function right now, is Dave or David, and I'm going to pass in David, and what happens, it'll still say false, right? So here's the logic to figure out whether it's my name or not. And I'm going to also check to see if it's Dave or David. So it's going to be like this and like this. And let's see, let's paste in a couple others. One of those. And then we'll also have to give it like, some false stuff like Bob. What about David? Something like that too. Okay, so let's see. This I would respond to this. This should be true. This one, that's true. I would respond to that. I would probably respond to this one true. And then Bob, no, I'm not Bob. Oh, so this is false. And this I would not respond to also. It's not David, it's David or Dave. Okay. So here's the logic I came up with to try to determine if it's David or Dave. And I'm sure there's easier ways to do this, of course, but because we're trying to learn the nested if-else statements, we're going to kind of break it down like this. So there's a way easier way to do it, which is you could just check to see, if it's this string or this string and be done with it. But because we're learning a little bit more today, we're going to make it more complicated. So I'm going to get rid of that return false, and basically inside of here is where we're going to put our logic to figure out if it's Dave or David. And what I'm going to do is basically just go down the list here. Does the name start with da? Okay, so to check that, you say if the name dot has prefix. And this is just a thing that you can do with strings, is check the prefix. And if the prefix is da, then do what? Now already I want to do something special because, like what if you capitalize it or lowercase it? We want to check all these cases. So right off the bat, I want to change this name to lowercase. So I'm going to check everything lowercase. So to do that, you can do something like this. So let lowercase name and assign it to name.lowercase, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to create this new thing, and so now we're going to check the lowercase version of it. Now you can also, instead of creating a new thing called lowercase name, you can just say name again. So it's going to create, like, it's weird because it creates a new thing called name. So see, here's the first thing called name, and now here's the new thing called name. See how it's highlighting this one here, and now it's highlighting this one here. So essentially, this new version of name is going to all be lowercase letters. That makes the logic easier. So I just need to check this, and it'll check all kinds of things, like it'll check for this, it'll check for this, and it'll check for this, and it'll check for this. So all that is good. So if the name's prefix is da, great. Then what's the next thing? This one's done. The next one is, does the name end with vid? Okay, there's a, so now inside of these curly braces means that this condition has been met. This is true. The name, and inside of here, now what do we do? Now we say if name dot has suffix, and we're looking for vid. Lowercase again, because it's still a part of the lowercase name there. So if it's got the lowercase vid, and it has the suffix that ends with vid, and so if it ends with vid, does the name contain 5 letters? Because if it's got DA and it's got VID and it's got 5 letters, then geez, it's got to be, you know, these 5 letters. So if name dot count is equal to 5, that's just the code to check to see if it's got 5 letters, and if it does, then great, it's definitely legit. We're going to return true. So if so, the name is David. If not, it is not David. Now I'm not gonna say else here, return false, because I'm gonna cover all the extra. I'm just gonna check the truth of things, and then at the very bottom here, I'm just gonna return false. So if it actually gets down to this point, then return false. So basically, when you're running your functions here, if you return true at this point, it stops everything, spits out true, and then doesn't continue down the path here. Okay, but if it gets all the way to the bottom and no truth has been met, then I'm just going to spit out false at the end here. That makes it a little bit easier, so I don't have to, you know, have a bunch of else statements. Now, again, there's a lot of ways to do this, and you know, once you start getting these nested if-else statements, you might want to look into things like switch statements, enums, and we'll get into that later. But this is just to get you through that leap year assignment. So we're going to do it the way the book wants it right now, and we'll learn that other stuff later. Okay, if the name does not end with vid, does the name end with v? So like instead of David, what about Dave? So what we got to do is we got to find the curly brace that corresponds with this one, the vid. So if you click around these curly braces, it flashes the corresponding one, and so this is the if it's vid part, and then down here would be the else if statement. So I'm checking, all right, if it's not vid, then is it ending in, is it has suffix with ve? And if it does, then we'll put some curly braces in there, and the curly braces again indicate, you know, if this condition is met, then execute the code inside of these curly braces. So if it's v, well, then we got to check if it's got like 4 letters, because Dave has 4 letters. So we're going to check if name, oh my gosh, name dot count is equal to 4. More curly braces again, and if so, we're going to return true. So again, we're just checking these 2 things. If it's got 5 letters and it's David, if it's got 4 letters and it's Dave, return true, and then it's just going to continue down here for everything else, and then just spit out false before the function closes here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and run this and see what works, or what doesn't work. So what do we have? True, 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 false, false. Looks like our logic is pretty sound. You know, then I'd like to just kind of experiment with it and make sure that it's actually, you know, still working with different scenarios. Something like that. What about if we send nothing in there? This is the only one I'd respond to. Okay, it looks good, right? So this is essentially like a roadmap for how to solve your leap year assignment. Now, there's the extra credit part at the bottom where they say, how do you do this in one line? You know, and for me, like this is like, I don't really like this part because for me, when you start reducing your code to one line of code, a lot of times it becomes not readable and difficult to understand. But that being said, it's a challenge. Let's accept the challenge and let's try to do it in one line. So we're going to make a new function. It's going to be very similar to this one here. Copy and paste that there, and then I'll put another curly brace here, and I'll call this is Dave or David in one line, right? So what they say to do is just to make a bunch of bool properties like first, and then use one line of code to figure out if it's true or not. So what you're going to do is you're going to do something like let starts with da, and then we're going to do the name. Basically all of the logic we got up here we're going to do, and we're going to assign it to so it has name prefix da. We're going to assign that to a bool here. So it's going to be a true or false bool. Oh, has prefix. Now before we do this fancy work here, we're going to have to again make it all lowercase. So let name equal name dot lowercase. So we're going to lowercase everything. And so it starts with da, there's like ends with vid and ends with v. Ends with vid, ends with v. It's not starts, it's ends. Ends with v. Ends not has prefix, it has suffix. And we got a vid here, and we got a v here. Okay. Now the other thing we got to check is we got to check these the count, right? Count, but this count 5-letter count only corresponds to vid, and this 4-letter count only corresponds to v. So what I kind of want to do is like combine these two. So like ends with vid and, so and to do and is like double and the name dot count is equal to 5. Oh, yeah, is equal to 5. And then we'll make this one the and name dot count is equal to 4. Now it'd probably be a good idea at this point to rename this property ends with vid. Maybe I'll just call it ends with vid 5 and ends with v 4. It's not great, but it's something. And okay, so now we've got our properties kind of set up for our final test here. And this is the challenge to make one line of code with this stuff. So easy enough if it starts with da. And then I'm going to put some parentheses in here because I got to check two things. I got to check it'll either end with vid 5 letters or and the or is these two vertical lines. It's you hold down shift and then right above the return key or the enter key, there you hit that button there and there's two vertical lines, and that means or ends with v with 4 letters. Then return true. Everything else return false. You could also throw the else statement in here. You could do else, everything else, return false. That's also legit because it covers everything else. But you know, you could do what I did originally and just have this outside of curly braces, just like return false for everything else down here. If you get down to this point, then it's not David. All right, so let's see if this worked. I'm going to take the same stuff here and we'll paste it down there and get my new function. Doot, 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 doot. We'll throw a couple of Daves in there. And we'll see what works and what doesn't. So let's see here. We got, yeah, I responded that. True, true, false, false, true. And here is that one line that they were asking about. Now, when you actually, if you try this with the leap year assignment, you're going to need to check if something is false. Okay, and I don't know if they go over this in the book yet or not, but to check a bool is false, you know, you could do like ends with vid is equal to false, something like this. That's fine, right? There's another way to do that, and that is to put an exclamation point in front of the property. Not, so that's what that means to me. Ends with vid5, not. Okay, that's something weird that you might see every now and then. Exclamation point means different things in different places. If you place it before property, then it means not. So hopefully that helps you get through this assignment. It is a tricky one, and some students get stuck on it, understandably, but I do like to see where you're at this point in the class. This would be during the first class, CIS 150 AB. The subsequent classes are 165 and then 265, and then there's, you know, extra stuff after that. But this is all in our app development series at Mesa Community College. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. If it was, then give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and until next time, take care.